So today we're going to make pork stock with the leftover bones that we have from our hog that we butchered. The first thing we're going to do is chop up some vegetables to add some flavor to the stock. Just do a rough chop, since it'll just be used in the water to flavor the broth. You can keep the ends on here. So we're going to do celery, carrots, and then we're going to do an onion. You can leave your peels on your onion, or you can take them off, that's up to you. I just do a rough chop, peels on, because it's all going to be strained out later. So we have a stock pot of water on our stove simmering, filled up about 3/4 of the way. Add in our vegetables. Now we're going to add in our bones from our pig. And we're going to put in, this is a shoulder blade bone. So if you want to do this, but you don't have a hog that you either butchered yourself or had sent out to the butcher, you could buy yourself a picnic roast or a Boston butt or blade roast that actually has that blade bone in it. You can debone it yourself, and then you can use that blade bone to make your stock out of. That would really be the cheapest way for you to do it, is to buy your own bone-in pork roast and debone it to make your stock. For us, we just want to utilize the entire pig. So I also have a section of the back area of the rib area with the spine in it. So this doesn't quite fit. So what we're going to do is we're going to add more water just to cover these bones. This is going to simmer then for, I like to simmer it for quite some time, at least 12 hours, until you see that the meat starts falling off the bone. At that point, you can simmer it for another 12 hours if you want to go for bone broth. That's when that bones start breaking down and you start getting the marrow that comes and cartilage that comes out of the bone, and it gets thick and gelatinous. But if you just want standard pork broth, you could boil it for about 12 hours and you'll get the meat off the bone and you'll get the flavor from the bone. So then I'll show you once this is done how we'll process it later. But bring this up to a boil and then drop it down to a simmer, and that's what you're going to want to do, is simmer this for 12 hours for basic broth, 24 for bone broth. After your broth gets to the point that you want it, either bone broth or just standard broth, you're going to want to remove through straining off all of the vegetables and any of the meat that came out off of the bones out of the stock to make it nice and clear. So you can either put it through a sieve with cheesecloth, or you can use a strainer like this, which is a mess strainer. You scoop it out. And you can do this multiple times if you want. It's just depending on how clear you want your broth. It's best when you're scooping it out to put it into another colander with a bowl underneath it to catch any stock that is going to be hiding in between that meat and the veggies. After straining the broth, I poured out all the vegetables and meat that came off the bones onto a cookie sheet. So we're going to let this cool. Once it cools, I'll be able to pick through it to see if there's any bones in it, because a lot of times when the bones break down, you get joints. Like here we see there's part of the joint bone. So once this is all cooled, I can pick through it. But this meat and these veggies, they still have flavor. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna use some of this for my stuffing for Thanksgiving in the stuffing base. And then I likely freeze the rest of it in a couple portions. But this would be great that you could freeze and use in recipes for casseroles, as a base for a casserole, because you have all your veggies and you have some pork. You know, you might want to make some cornbread with it and stir some of that, separate out some of that pork and put some of that pork in. You could do, you know, easily pull out the pork and do some tacos with it. Just take the pork and fry it up in a pan and have some tacos. So there's a lot of things that you could do with this. There's still a ton of flavor in it. So we don't want to waste anything. I'm going to save a little section of it for my dogs as a special treat for dinner. But besides that, I mean, you could do whatever you want with this. This is still really good food. You don't want to waste it, and you could use it for so many different recipes. You're going to cool your broth overnight in the refrigerator so that the fat can float to the top. Once the fat floats to the top, then you can skim it off. At this point, your broth is ready to either can or you could pressure can it if you have a pressure canner. Today, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put some into ice cubes and we're going to freeze them. So then if we have the need for small amounts of broth, we could just pop the ice cubes out. So once these are filled and they are frozen, we can pop them out and put them into a Ziploc bag, a gallon bag, and store them in the freezer for when we need them. Thanks for watching, and if you have any questions about the process, you can leave them in the comments below. Thanks again.